I wake before dawn, as I have every morning for 77 years. My alarm never rings, my body's internal clock always seems to know when it's 6 o'clock. The pale light seeps through cream-colored curtains, the edges still crisp from last week's wash. I lie there a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator downstairs, as if it's a pulse I've learned to take for granted. This room used to be my daughter Rachel's guest suite. Now it's my rented apartment, tucked into the corner of her 3-story house, a place I once owned without anyone knowing. I pull aside the thin drape and look out at the tidy backyard dew glinting on the rose bushes. The view should comfort me, manicured lawn-stone path winding to a white picket fence. But instead, it reminds me I no longer belong here. 5 years ago, I moved back in ostensibly to help Rachel after her mother died. In reality, I've been carefully calculating every sunrise and sunset, counting the days, until I can break free from their cost-cutting hospitality. My bones protest as I swing my legs over the edge of the bed. The quilt is scratchy, and the thin mattress reminds me that everything in this house has a price tag. I inch toward the door, pulling on the bathrobe they've provided. I keep a pair of slippers by the nightstand, the only concession I allow myself to comfort. Through the open doorway, I hear the refrigerator door slam. That sound always comes at exactly 6:02, as reliable as my daughter's knock. "Dad, you still breathing?" Rachel's voice cuts through the hallway, brisk and businesslike. She never greets me with good morning, never asks how I slept. It's always demands rent, due bills, due deadlines to meet. There's no softness left in her tones, only the efficient precision of someone managing a spreadsheet. "Not yet," I call back, mustering a grin I know she won't see. I shuffle down the hall, the carpet muffling my steps. The kitchen is chilly, the thermostat locked somewhere in the basement. Steam rises from a chipped bowl of oatmeal waiting at the table, looking more like bland mush than breakfast. Half a banana floats on top, its edges browning with neglect. No butter, no sugar, strictly water and grain. It's the same meal every day, and yet I accept it without complaint. After all, I'm paying $2,000 a month to eat this penitential porridge. Mark, Rachel's husband, sits at the kitchen island with his laptop open, eyes focused on spreadsheets. He's already dressed in a crisp button-down and slacks tie loosened for his final cup of coffee. He glances up, nods once, then returns to his numbers. No word of greeting, no small talk. It's clear my presence here is tolerated, not cherished. I settle into my usual chair. "Good morning," I say softly, though I know it's wasted breath. Rachel slides into the seat across from me, phone in hand. She texts something, then looks up. "Don't forget, Dad, rent's due Monday. And utilities went up. Your share is $400 this month." I nod. I've paid that amount enough times now that I could recite it in my sleep. "Thanks for reminding me," I say, spooning a bite of oatmeal. She watches me, arms crossed. "You have everything set up for next week. I double-checked your bank. If it doesn't transfer, I'll have to call you." Call me, as if I need another lecture about overdraft fees. I swallow another spoonful of the gray porridge, forcing a smile I don't feel. Everything's arranged. Her gaze flicks to the window, perhaps looking for any excuse to leave. "Good. Mark's off to the office soon. I have a meeting at 9. Don't wander off." I finish the bowl in silence. Each swallow reminds me of everything I've endured to keep this secret, the lottery ticket, the late-night deposit, the hush-hush purchase of this very house. 5 years I've kept up the pretense, never a word to Rachel or our son Thomas, because I knew what would happen if they learned the truth. Their hands would be out before they even hung up the phone. I clear the bowl and head back to my room to dress. On the nightstand, a photograph of my late wife Margaret in happier days, standing by the roses at our old home. I touched the frame, remembering her warmth, her honest simplicity. She would never have let her children treat me like a tenant in my own house. As I button my shirt and straighten my posture, I steel myself for another day of pensiveness, wrapped in polite obligation. The knock on the door comes 2 minutes later. Lily, my granddaughter on her way to college, bringing genuine concern in her eyes. Her light presence is all that keeps me going on days like this. But for now I step into the hallway, ready to play the beleaguered tenant once again, hiding behind my own daughter's walls until the time is right. I remember the moment the world shifted under my feet. It was a damp November afternoon in 2005, the kind of gray morning where even the birds seemed too weary to sing. Margaret lay in her hospital bed, her breathing shallow and ragged monitors beeping like a metronome counting down. I sat by her side, clutching her frail hand, wondering how I'd ever fill the silence she left behind. She turned her head, and with a whisper barely louder than a sigh said, "Promise me we'll be all right." I squeezed her hand and nodded, though I felt anything but all right. After her funeral grief and the empty echo of this house settled over me like heavy drapes, I wandered through our once shared rooms, the sunroom she adored, the kitchen where she baked apple pie every autumn, and felt like a stranger in my own life. The hush of memories seemed to swallow every corner. A week after the services, I sat in Margaret's battered recliner, nursing a cup of black coffee that had grown cold before I finished it. The lottery drawing flickered on the TV in the corner, a habit I'd picked up to distract myself. I barely registered the numbers until the announcer's voice cracked tonight's jackpot, $1.8 million. My heart fluttered. I'd bought a ticket on a whim, hoping for nothing more than a daydream. Yet, as each number matched disbelief gave way to a hollow thrill. I checked and rechecked. In that quiet living room, I'd become a millionaire. The temptation to share the news surged through me like wildfire. I imagined Rachel's squeal, Thomas's jealous grin, Margaret's teary eyes of joy. But then I pictured them leaning in for more. "Dad, can you help me with college, Dad? The business needs a loan." Their faces, so hungry for anything they could take, haunted me. I'd seen how easily they took and never gave back. My promise to Margaret, "We'll be all right," felt fragile and impossible if I siphoned off our only security, so I kept the secret. I took the cashier's check to the bank myself, the faint echo of my shoes on marble floors as lonely as a church at midnight. I opened a high-yield savings account under my name alone, the teller's polite congratulations drowned by my pounding heart. I told no one, not my children, not a close friend, certainly not Mother, who still lived in Oakdale and would have clucked with worry. A month later, I returned to that same bank with a second check, this one for $600,000. I'd found a listing for a near-century-old house in Slidell, its price slashed because the owners were moving north. 2 stories, sturdy foundation, and a backyard that peeked over a small pond. It felt like home the moment I saw it. The realtor placed her hand on my arm and said, "You'll be very happy here." I brushed aside a wave of guilt and signed the papers. When the ink dried, I held the keys in my palm and realized I had traded one lonely house for another. This one was mine, though I would soon let my children believe I was simply their lodger. I staged it as a rental for convenience, making up stories about market rates and maintenance. Rachel never questioned it, assuming I preferred to stay where she could keep an eye on me. Thomas asked if the rent was reasonable. "You're not living like a king on Social Security," he teased. I laughed politely, nodding along. secret joy radiating beneath my quiet denial. Back in the kitchen of Rachel's home, I stir my oatmeal and feel that old weight settle in my chest. It's uncanny how eating the same bland breakfast day after day feels like a confession I'm living a lie. And every spoonful reminds me of the house I own that they think is someone else's. I taste the grit of unspoken truths, the bitterness of every dollar I've hoarded against their greed. I often revisit that winter afternoon in my mind. I see Margaret's frail smile, hear her wheeze out the words, "Promise me we'll be all right." If she could see me now bridging the gap between two houses, one built of brick and mortar, the other of deception, would she commend my cunning or curse my solitude? I'll never know. Sometimes I imagine telling Rachel during one of her morning tirades about rent or heating costs, "You know I don't pay anyone else. I pay myself." I picture her face turning pale, her coffee cup rattling on the counter. But the thought frightens me more than the sting of her anger. I've grown accustomed to this facade, to the way they tiptoe around my living arrangements, without ever suspecting the truth. In the days that followed buying the house, I spent long hours alone in my new study running Hedges plots on the mortgage, comparing interest rates, budgeting for repairs. The realtor's parting advice, "Get to know the neighborhood," led me to stroll among the magnolias and listen to children's laughter by the park. I locked in a low-rate mortgage, arranged for a trusted contractor to restore the weathered porch, and set up utilities in my own name. No one asked questions about the ownership papers I signed under a shell corporation. Returning to Rachel's each evening, I slipped back into the guest room like slipping into an uncomfortable suit. Her brisk, "How was your day?" dripped with thin courtesy. I'd nod, drop my keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, and pretend my heart wasn't racing at the thought of my hidden fortune. Some nights when the house fell silent, and only the hum of the refrigerator kept vigil, I sat in the living room of my secret home. I'd light the lantern. Margaret loved its warm glow dancing across the faded wallpaper. I'd read by that light, savoring the quiet I denied myself at my daughter's. I poured a glass of scotch, the single malt she once shared with me after our anniversary dinner, and let the peat-laced warmth settle through my bones. In those moments I felt Margaret's presence most keenly. I whispered into the empty air, "I've kept my word, love. We're all right." But the echo of my own voice sounded hollow. Truth and deception swirled in the dimness, twisting the promise I'd made into something I scarcely recognized. Now, as I spoon another bite of oatmeal, the flashback fades, and I am once again sitting across from Rachel and Mark. Their bright eyes, focused on budgets and schedules, still fail to see the house I've secretly built for myself, the one that stands bricks and mortar just a few blocks away. I swallow the last of my penance porridge and push the bowl aside. The secret that haunts me glimmers in the pale morning light, as unmistakable as the key in my pocket, and as heavy as the promise I made to my dying wife. Yet this morning, like every morning, I tuck it away behind polite smiles and obedient nods, keeping the past and my fortune locked safely behind my silent lips. I push back my chair and stand smoothing the front of my shirt, even though there's no visible wrinkle. Mark's voice trails after me. "Just making sure Dad rent on Monday. Utilities Friday." He disappears down the hallway, briefcase swinging at his side. The click of his office door reminds me how little place I hold in this house, just one more errand to run, one more bill to pay. I carry my oatmeal bowl to the sink, rinse it absent-mindedly, and tap the rim with my thumb. $2,000 for a bedroom the size of a walk-in closet, $400 for power and water I barely use. I can practically hear the calculator in Rachel's mind clicking each expense into her ledger. One more line item, one more reminder of who holds the purse strings here. I walk back into the living room and settle onto the worn arm of the sofa, staring out the window at the empty lot next door. The sun has finally burned through the morning mist, and the magnolias I planted in my secret garden must be bursting into bloom right about now. I wonder if I'll find time today to slip away for a quick stroll down that lane. Maybe the tension will ease if I can just feel the earth beneath my feet. But there's no time. The ding of the kitchen timer signals my next appointment, Lily's ride to campus. I shake my head at the heartbreak of my schedule. Once upon a time I answered to no one. Now every minute belongs to someone else. In the kitchen, Lily is gathering her books, mouth full of toast. "Grandpa," she says as I step in, chirping around a mouthful of jam, "you look like tense this morning." I'm surprised at her candor. Most days she skirts the edge of conflict, polite but distant. "Just thinking." "Sweetheart," I say, pouring her a glass of orange juice. Every penny counted. She nods and glances at the empty bowl on the counter. "They left that bowl for you," she says in a low voice. "Did you know it's chipped?" I hold my breath. That chipped bowl was a gift from Margaret, painted with blue forget-me-nots. I picked it up at an estate sale years ago and kept it safe in a cabinet I rarely used. I noticed, I admit, it has character. She rolls her eyes but smiles. "Don't let them nickel and dime you, Grandpa." Her words warm me more than the sofa cushion. Lily is the only one who sees me, not the landlord, not the charity case, but her grandfather. I reach over and squeeze her shoulder. "Thanks, kiddo," I murmur. She gathers her backpack and hustles out, leaving the swing of the front door echoing down the hall. I wipe my forehead, though I don't feel hot. The weight of their expectations settles onto my shoulders again. It's an old story now. I transfer the money on Monday, record the confirmation number in a notebook I keep hidden in my top desk drawer, then watch the balance inch ever lower. 4 figures here, 3 zeros there, until I could almost believe I was powerless. My cell phone buzzes. A calendar reminder from last week, pay rent. I hit done and vow to update next month's reminder to consider finding a new place. But that thought brings guilt and panic in equal measure. Where would I go? The apartment downtown is modest but more expensive than this if you factor taxi rides and groceries. And no one checks on me there. Not even Lily. In some ways it feels lonelier than Rachel's. I set the phone down and wander into the living room. The TV is on, but the volume is low. A droning news anchor reports on a new city council tax increase. I catch the phrase "rising utility rates" and flick the remote off. My heart thumps, marks one more reason their numbers climb. They'll pass the extra expense on to me next month. I can already imagine Rachel's tight smile as she announces, "Dad, the rate went up again. Your share is now $4.50. I sniff, trying not to think of that brutal exchange. The man I was before this house relied on me every month, would have confronted her with facts, showed meter readings, dispute graphs, even rigged my own sub-meter if I had to. But now I'm too tired for battles. My protest would be met with calm condescension, the kind that cuts deeper than a scream. Suit yourself, she'd shrug and mark another tick against my dignity. I glance at my watch. 30 minutes until Lily's bus departs. I pour myself a glass of water from the filtered pitcher, then tiptoe to the front door to greet her. She bounds down the porch steps, her college ID dangling like a charm, bright against her denim jacket. "Don't let them work you too hard, Grandpa," she calls as she slides onto the bus. I wave, though I know she won't see. She's gone before I can swallow the lump in my throat. I close the door, heart hollow. If only every shadow I chased in those dull bowls of oatmeal could vanish as easily. If only Mark's clipped reminders, Rachel's calculating gaze, and the relentless drip of bills could evaporate in the afternoon sun. But they cling like cobwebs across my skin, reminding me of my place, a tenant in my own life. I wander back to the kitchen sink and see water pooling at my feet. I hadn't noticed that the faucet dripped during breakfast. Another expense, another leak to fix. I twist the handle tighter, but the drip persists, tiny sparks of water falling into the stainless steel basin. The sound feels mocking, each drop an echo of money slipping away. Behind me, footsteps approach. Rachel stands in the doorway, arms folded. "You didn't transfer the rent yet," she says. I turn slowly. "I'll do it this afternoon, I promise." She raises an eyebrow. "You said that last Monday." I feel the flush rising in my cheeks. "I had a doctor's appointment." Her eyes narrow. "Everything all right?" Concern flickers an annoyance trying to masquerade as care. I swallow. "Yes, just a checkup." She steps forward. "You know, Dad, we're not trying to squeeze you, but if you fall behind, it's an issue." I force a small laugh. "I won't fall behind." She studies me, then nods as though satisfied. "Okay, but soon." She turns and walks away, heels clicking a steady rhythm. I stand rooted to the spot, the faucet's drip finally silenced by my stiff grip. My hand trembles as I return to the table and pick up a pen. I open my notebook to the rent ledger, fingers brushing the margin where I've scribbled, "Move out," in faint pencil. Between the lines of numbers 2,000, 400, 2,000, 450, 2,000, 500. I see the toll this life has taken. Each entry represents a compromise, a dimming of my spirit, a day lived under the watchful eyes of those who believe I owe them something. I pause, pen hovering. A fleeting thought crosses my mind: why not tip the balance in my favor? Why not let the utility rates climb until even the city council notices? Why not wear their pennies down until their own patience cracks? Yet I close the notebook and set the pen aside. Games are best played one move at a time. I rise and cross to the window. Outside, children in uniforms march toward school, their laughter bright as bells. I envy the simplicity of their world, routine without calculation, friendship without ledgers. When did life become this arithmetic? So many dollars for so many hours, so many somethings for all those otherwise nothings. Behind me, the front door opens. Mark steps in, face grave. "Dad, your daughter called. She's worried your doctor's report mentioned high blood pressure." He lowers his voice. "Maybe you should eat something more substantial than oatmeal." I study his expression, brief, almost hidden kindness. This isn't just about the rent, he knows. It's about a father fading under the weight of his own secrets. I nod, offering gratitude I barely feel. "I'll consider it," I say gently. He pats my shoulder and heads toward the stairs. "Call me if you need me." I return to the sofa and sink down the cushions, swallowing me. The utility bills, the rent reminders, the drips from a faucet all merge into a steady buzz in my mind. Somewhere deep inside, something shifts. I lean forward, resting elbows on my knees, clasping my hands. I can't keep living this way. Every dollar I pay to rent a room I own is a lie that grows heavier with each passing month. The hunger in Rachel's tone, the calculations in Mark's gaze, these are the debts I never signed up for. It's time I stopped paying for acceptance that may never come. Sunlight spills across the hardwood floor, warm and unwavering. It reaches toward me, a silent promise of possibilities beyond four-figure checks and chipped bowls. I lift my head eyes, meeting my own reflection in the dark TV screen. There's resolve in those lines, in that pair of tired eyes, resolve to reclaim what's mine, to stop the arithmetic of my life, and to write a new chapter beyond rent and utilities. I stand more steady than I have in months, and walk toward the hall. The morning's litany of dues and demands hums behind me like an old song. But today I choose a different rhythm. I wake slowly to the rich aroma of coffee, a scent so unfamiliar in this house that I lie still a moment, savoring it as though it were a rare perfume. The bedroom door opens just enough to let in a sliver of morning light, and there stands Lily, her hair in that careless braid she favors sunlight glinting off a few stray wisps. She's holding a steaming mug, and when she sees me stir, her face breaks into a smile so bright it could rival 1,000-watt bulb. "Good morning, Grandpa," she whispers, setting the mug on the nightstand and brushing my cheek with the back of her hand. The gesture is so gentle, so sincere, that I feel warmth spread from my heart out to my fingertips. "How are you today?" I reach up, catching her hand in mine. Her skin is soft and warm, and I remember cupping her newborn cheek in this very spot years ago. "I'm better than I was yesterday," I tell, her voice husky from sleep. "Thanks to you." She settles on the edge of the bed, tucking her braid behind her ear. Her college sweatshirt looks oversized, sleeves dangling past her wrists. "Did you sleep okay?" she asks, eyes clouded with concern. I lift the mug with a trembling hand and take a careful sip. Real coffee, rich, smooth, with that faint bitterness that tastes like freedom. I slept fine, I lie, though every joint in my body still aches. But I don't want to worry her. This is delicious. You remembered how I take it. Lily nods, but her fingers drum on her thigh. "Grandpa," she says softly. "You don't have to." "Don't have to." What? I interrupt gently. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" She swallows, glancing toward the door as if expecting Rachel or Mark to burst in with their next demand. I know things have been tough around here." Her voice falters slightly. "With the rent and the bills." She reaches across and takes the mug from my hand, sipping it herself. "Can I sit with you for a few minutes?" I pat the space beside me. "Always." She folds her legs under her, balancing the mug between her palms. "I was talking to Sarah in my dorm last night." She begins referring to her roommate. She was telling me about how her grandpa always cooks breakfast for her on Tuesdays, and she said he makes pancakes. She laughed, said he sometimes puts chocolate chips in them just to see her face light up. I told her, "My grandpa barely eats breakfast. He has oatmeal every day, no exceptions." We share a soft laugh, no derision, just the relief of seeing each other's genuine selves. I imagine that pancake story must have sounded absurd to her, but it's those little moments that matter, a chocolate chip here, a messy braid there. "I'd like to have pancakes," I say quietly. Her eyes light immediately. "I can make pancakes," she exclaims. "I mean, after class, if you want. But I wanted to talk to you first." She hesitates, then blurts out, "I hate seeing you treated like some paying customer. You're my grandpa. You deserve more." The tenderness in her voice moves me. I squeeze her hand. It's all part of growing up, kiddo. We all have our roles. I pause, choosing my next words. "I'm grateful for the roof, for the food, even if it's oatmeal, and for you." Lily shakes her head, sitting up. You shouldn't have to pay for this house, not a single cent. Her gaze flickers to the closed door, then back to me. I know you love them, Rachel and Mark, but that's not how families should treat each other. Her honesty stirs a knot in my chest. Rachel and Mark meant well, I remind myself. They're trying to balance budgets to make sure I'm safe. Yet every demand, every reminder of rent, cuts a little deeper than any blade. They've forgotten I'm not just an expense. They've forgotten I'm a person. I clear my throat. Lily, I appreciate you. More than you know. I pause, letting the quiet settle. But life's complicated. Sometimes the people we love aren't perfect. She studies me, brow furrowed. Tell me what's really going on, Grandpa. Does it hurt you to have to pay rent here? I look at her, and in that moment I see beyond the bright student she is. I see the girl who once tugged at my sleeve wanting to learn to read. I see all the ways she's given me hope when the rest of the world seemed intent on reminding me of my age and my limitations. I take a deep breath. Yeah, I admit softly, it does. Lily's eyes glisten. She sets the mug down and takes my hand in both of hers. You don't have to do that, she says firmly. Not if it hurts you. I swallow a lump in my throat. I do it because it keeps the peace. My voice wavers. I'm stubborn. And I have reasons. I think of the house I bought in secret, the lottery, everything I've kept locked away. I want to tell her to let her in on my secret. I want her to know I'm not powerless, not in need, like she's been led to believe. But I hesitate. Some truths aren't meant to be spilled all at once. Instead, I say, thank you for caring, Lily. You're the only one who sees past the facade. I squeeze her hand, and it's as though I've anchored myself to something solid. She gives a small smile. That's my job. I rest my head back against the pillow, closing my eyes. The morning sun warms my face through the curtains, and I realize Lily's presence here is my true inheritance. Not the house, not the money. It's this, the love of a granddaughter who asks no rent, demands no duties, but simply offers compassion. Minutes pass in comfortable silence. At last, Lily stands brushing imaginary dust from her jeans. I'll make you those pancakes, she announces, voice bright again, but I'm charging you for them one big hug per serving. I chuckle, patting the mattress. Deal. She bends down, wrapping her arms around me. I hug her back, careful not to startle her with my creaking joints. But it doesn't matter. She squeezes me all the same. I feel her heartbeat against my chest, rhythmic and alive. It's a reminder that life goes on even when it seems weighted by balance sheets and obligations. She straightens, pressing a quick kiss to my temple. I'll see you after class. She heads toward the door, pausing at the threshold. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, I whisper, watching her go. The door clicks softly behind her, and suddenly the room feels too quiet. But it's not the emptiness of abandonment. It's the hush of gratitude. I sit up, swinging my legs off the bed. For the first time this morning, I feel something other than dread. I feel grounded. I reach beside the nightstand and lift the chipped blue bowl that once held my oatmeal. In my mind's eye, I see that gift from Margaret, the perfect blue forget-me-nots she painted all those years ago. I tuck it under my arm and head downstairs, determined to reclaim control over more than just my breakfast. In the kitchen, I find the coffee pot still warm. I pour a fresh cup for myself and then set it on the counter. I open the freezer door and pull out the bag of pancake mix I bought last week in a rare moment of indulgence. The box promises fluffy golden results, and I smile. As I sift the mix into a bowl, I think of Rachel's disapproval, of Mark's clipped reminders, of the utility bills waiting to be paid. Today I decide I'll pay them, but tonight I'll savor pancakes with my granddaughter, and nothing no spreadsheet or ledger can charge me for that. The kitchen fills with the soft hiss of batter sizzling on the griddle and the sweet scent of vanilla. I whisk slowly, deliberately, each stroke sending flecks of flour dancing in the morning light. When the first pancake flips golden and perfect, I plate it with care. By the time Lily bursts back through the door, cheeks flushed from her walk, she finds me at the stove light dancing on her hair. Her eyes widen. "You did it," she breathes. I hold up a pancake, warm and inviting. "One hug per serving," I remind her. She laughs, a bright bell-like sound, and wraps me in another embrace. "Best breakfast ever," she whispers. I sit at the table watching her dive in the world's worries, melting away with each forkful. In Lily's warmth, I find the strength to face whatever demands come tomorrow. For now, the kitchen is filled with laughter, and that is my greatest fortune. Thomas's glossy black SUV rolls into the driveway just as I'm stacking the last of our pancake plates in the sink. I catch a glimpse of his reflection in the window-broad shoulders in a pressed polo shirt, the tight line of his mouth betraying something he won't say out loud. He kills the engine with a soft thud and steps out. Wife Emma hovering at his side, their two teenagers lingering near the curb. Their faces are polite masks, the kind you wear when visiting a parent who's inconvenienced you more times than you can count. I open the door before they can knock and step onto the porch, the morning breeze carrying the faint scent of fresh mulch from the neighbor's yard. "Thomas," I say, forcing warmth into my voice. "Good to see you." He hesitates an instant, just long enough for me to feel the tension coil in my chest, but then he manages a stiff smile. "Hey, Dad." His gaze flicks past me to the pancake plates in the sink. "Breakfast smells nice." "I made extra," I say, stepping aside so they can enter. Emma and the kids drift in behind him, their sneakers scuffing my hardwood floor. "Help yourselves. There's syrup on the counter." I haven't seen syrup in this house for years. Emma's frugal spirit would have banished anything that didn't cost less than $1. They settle at the kitchen island. Thomas drops into a stool, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up just a hair. I pour him a cup of coffee, black, just like he likes, and watch him take a sip, eyes closing as though he's sipping vintage wine. "Thanks," he mutters. I slip around to the stove and ladle fresh pancakes onto a plate. Emma gives me a quick, almost imperceptible nod when I catch her eye, a silent thank you for breaking the monotony of oatmeal. The kids giggle over something on their phones. They've reached that age where nothing is real, unless it fits in a square on the screen. I set the pancakes before Thomas. He glances at them, then at me. "You know, Dad," he says, his voice careful and calm. "We can't stay long today, but I go for it." I interrupt, smiling as I pat him on the shoulder. "Tell me how the kids are. How's Jennifer finding college?" His brow softens at the mention of his eldest. "She loves it," he says. "Dean's List already. Biology major." He glances at her across the counter. She smiles shyly and nods. "They're both doing great." I nod. "That's wonderful. You should be proud." He lets the pause stretch between us, and for a moment I imagine this visit will be filled with family stories, graduation ceremonies, beach vacations, the small triumphs of daily life. Then he clears his throat, looks down at his plate and says, Actually, Dad, I wanted to ask. I freeze spatula midair. He tries again. The logistics market's tight. You heard about the Westport contract falling through. I nod, remembering my flash of pride when Thomas opened his own trucking business, hauling parts up and down the coast. Yeah. Anyway, we could really use some capital to upgrade the fleet before next quarter. I know you've always been supportive. Any chance you've saved something you could? I set the spatula down and stepped close, looking at him square in the eyes. No, son. Living on my pension. His face tightens, the lines around his eyes growing sharper. He stirs his coffee as though searching for the right words in the bottom of the mug. Emma places a gentle hand on his arm. Thomas, it's okay. We understand. He shakes her hand away. No, I need to ask. Dad, I appreciate everything you've done for us over the years, but this deal could make or break the business. If we lose it, we'll lose a dozen jobs. He glances at the kids who now watch with startled faces. I wouldn't ask if it weren't urgent. I swallow the lump in my throat. I remember the day I loaned him $5,000 to buy that first delivery truck. He'd promised me a full payoff in 6 months, and did so without fail. I remember the time I bankrolled Emma's startup catering gig, the look of gratitude in her eyes. I remember helping them through college tuition, wedding expenses, even the down payment on their current house. But those days are gone. I haven't said a word about the lottery winnings. They still believe I scrape by on Social Security and a humble pension from the power plant. And if I ever offered them a dime now, they'd swallow my finances whole, just like always. I take a breath. Thomas, I'm sorry. I can't. My voice is firm, but my heart quakes. His jaw clenches, and for a split second, I see the boy he once was, the boy who asked for a new bike because his old one's tire was flat. Then he leans back, shoulders hunching. I see, he says quietly. He turns away, drumming his fingers on the countertop. Emma stands, smoothing her skirt. We'll find another way, she murmurs, but I see the sorrow in her eyes. Even she knows what I can't say. There's no more money to give. The kids shift in their seats. The older one whispers something to the younger, who shoots me a guilty glance. I force a polite smile. Don't let this ruin your drive, I say, tone gentle. You're resourceful. You'll figure it out. Thomas lets out a long breath. Thanks. He rises, tucking his chair in. We better get going. He waves at the teens. Come on, guys. I follow him to the door. Drive safely, I say, placing a hand on his arm, a gesture from a lifetime ago, when I could reassure him that everything would be fine. He nods, eyes meeting mine for a fleeting second. Thanks, Dad. Then he slides into the driver's seat, Emma beside him. The teenagers pile in the back backpacks and smartphones in hand. The engine roars to life. I stand on the porch watching the SUV back down the drive, turn onto the street, and disappear around the corner. The rumble of the tires fades into the soft hum of the morning. I close the door behind me, heart heavy with the silence. Inside, the remnants of breakfast litter the counter, the coffee mug, crumbs of pancake, and empty syrup bottle. I pick up the mug and cradle it, the warmth seeping into my fingers. For a moment I savor the taste of real coffee, the gift Lily gave me, the rebellion I allowed myself this morning. But then the ache returns, the empty seats in my bank account, the hidden fortune that no one suspects. I place the mug in the sink and twist the faucet handle. Water cascades over the dirty dishes, washing away the crumbs and the comfort of simple family moments. In the quiet kitchen, I feel the weight of every favor I've granted, every loan that's gone unreturned, every expectation left unfulfilled. And I realize that Thomas's plea, predictable as the sunrise, has become a reminder I'm no longer the man they believe I am. I've outgrown the role of provider. The pension and the oatmeal are all they see, and in their eyes, that's all I'll ever be. I turn from the sink and walk toward the living room, the floorboards creaking beneath my slippers. Sunlight filters through the curtains, painting the walls in gentle stripes. I pause by the TV, its black screen reflecting my lined face. The man who stares back looks tired but resolute. I don't know what the future holds, no new contracts, no extra capital. But I know this. I won't let another plea chip away at my dignity. The pension is my boundary now, my line in the sand. I will protect it just as I protected the secret of my fortune for so long. And with that resolve settled like a stone in my chest, I sit on the sofa and close my eyes. The house is still, save for the distant chirp of a bird outside. No phone buzzes with another request. No subconscious whisper of rent due. Just the quiet of a man reclaiming his own story, one breath at a time. I step out onto the porch, the morning air still cool against my skin, and find Mr. Carter standing at the edge of his lawn. He's leaning on a stake that holds up a bright red for sale sign, the kind realtors plaster on every corner these days. His eyes gleam as if he's just discovered gold. "Morning, Henry," he calls, tipping his baseball cap. "You heard about the Browns' place down the street?" I shake my head, gripping the railing. "No, I haven't been following real estate lately." He laughs, a rich booming sound that carries across the sidewalk. "Oh, it's all anyone's talking about. They're asking nearly $1 million for that little bungalow." Can you believe it? $1 million? I raise an eyebrow. The Browns' house is smaller than mine. No 3 stories, no pond view, just one flat roof and a tidy yard. Really? He says, pushing the sign in the ground to straighten it. "The market's on fire. Slidell's a hot spot now, folks pouring in from New Orleans looking for quiet neighborhoods and good schools. I saw at least 3 couples inspecting that brown house just this morning." I glance at the street. It's quiet, the kids across the way waiting for the school bus cars rolling by in their usual morning drone. It's hard to imagine a bidding war erupting out here. But then I remember my own secret. I own a house a few blocks away that's easy on the eyes and tucked into a neighborhood of similar charm. Mr. Carter slaps his knee. "You know Henry? I looked at your place a few years ago. 50 years, solid brick, original hardwood floors. If the Browns can ask $1 million, yours is gold. You could list it tomorrow and laugh all the way to the bank." My heart skips. I stare at him, uncertain. "List it tomorrow," I echo, voice low. He nods, eyes shining. "That's right. You'd be the envy of the block. You'd probably get well over $800 for it at least. Heck, there's a realtor who specializes in high-dollar listings. I could introduce you." I force a polite smile, though my mind reels. Selling this house, my hidden refuge, my secret lifeline, would yank the rug out from under Rachel, and Mark would end their monthly rent checks once and for all. It would set them scrambling to find a new home, an eviction they never saw coming. Brilliant, devastating, and utterly intoxicating. I shrug, licking dry lips. It's been a good home, I say, trying to keep my tone light. Hard to think of letting it go. Mr. Carter leans in conspiratorially. "Nothing lasts forever, friend. Houses change hands. You move where the grass is greener, literally or figuratively." He gestures to the bright red sign. The Browns are getting out at the right time. Prices don't stay this high for long. I nod slowly, imagining the headline in my mind. Mysterious landlord cashes in family, left stunned. My pulse quickens at the thought of wielding that kind of power. I picture Rachel's face when she hears the news, her voice cracking. "Dad, what are you doing? You can't." And me, calm and composed, reciting the realtor's contract terms, reminding her that sometimes even grown daughters must pay the price. "And don't forget," Mr. Carter adds, clapping me on the shoulder, "you can rent back a room on a short-term basis if you need to, just to keep things civil. Get the best of both worlds." He tips his hat and waddles back to his sign, hammering it in with a practiced thud. I remain rooted to the spot, heart pounding, imagining every conceivable scenario. Board that sign, spin the key in the door, call the realtor. Everything I've hidden for 20 years would crash into the open. At last, I step down from the porch and head to my car, mind spinning faster than the wheels. The drive over to my secret home is a blur. I take the long way through winding streets lined with magnolias in bloom, breathing deeply as though each fragrant petal carries a new possibility. I park in front of the brick facade I paid for in secret all those years ago. The low hedge shields the front porch, and the bay windows glint in the afternoon sun. I touch the doorframe, tracing my fingertips over the cool wood. Inside the house is empty. No creaking beds, no chipped bowls, just bare walls echoing with memory. I imagine showings here, families wandering through dusty hallways, marveling at the original crown moldings, snapping photos on their phones. I see agents calling me, "We have a buyer at $985, or maybe even $1.2 million. The thought spins $1.2 million around my head like a carnival ride. I lean back against the door, closing my eyes. 20 years ago, I slipped that lottery check into a drawer and imagined security. That security has grown heavier than any mortgage. It's time to let it go. I picture Rachel's rent check, $2,000 in my own bank account, net gain from this windfall. I see Mark's tight nod replaced by panic as he realizes the landlord is not some distant shell corporation, but his own father. I relish the idea of standing before them calm and unafraid, announcing I've decided to sell this house. 30 days to vacate. My pulse races at the memory of Lily's face when this comes to her. I see her bright smile faltering, but then sharpening into resolve. She might turn this around for me, might become my ally in the war I'm about to wage. I pull my coat tighter and walk through each room, the sunlit living area, the dusty study where I once kept ledgers of my secret finances, the attic where boxes of memories sit untouched. I open a window upstairs and listen to the distant hum of traffic, the wind rustling through oak leaves. This house has been my quiet haven, the place where Margaret's portrait still hangs in the hallway, reminding me of promises made. And yet, I know my true haven now is freedom. A freedom that comes from owning my choices, letting go of a fortune that feeds my children's expectations, not my own dignity. I turn and head back down the stairs. At the front door, I pause, hand on the knob. The world beyond awaits phone calls to the realtor, an email trail, confidential listings, open houses. Each step will usher my family into chaos, but will also close the chapter of me as the tenant in my own life. I step outside and lock the door behind me. The sun sits lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the lawn. I drive slowly back to Rachel's mind, taut with anticipation. That night I lie awake in the guest room, my apartment staring at the cream ceiling. The memory of Mr. Carter's words echoes, "Your place is gold." My heart pounds like a rallying drum. I feel the weight of the secret I've held for decades and the thrill of releasing it. My eyes trace the dark outline of the window. Beyond that glass lies a house that isn't just clay and brick. It's a vault of power and possibility. I imagine sending the sale documents, watching the sold sign go up in front of the Browns' old place, then in front of mine. I envision the stunned gasp of my family when they learn the truth. Sleep eludes me as I wrestle with the choices ahead. I taste the tang of adrenaline, the acidic bite of guilt, and the sweet promise of retribution. The memory of Lily's warmth stands in contrast to the cold calculation of this plan. And yet, in the hush of the night, I realize that some fires must be lit in darkness before they can become light. I turn onto my side and close my eyes, mind awash in possibilities. Tomorrow, I will call the realtor. Tomorrow, I will initiate the sale. Tomorrow, the world I've known will tilt on its axis, and I will walk steady, guided by the knowledge that at last I am the master of my own fate. I wake to the low hum of the air conditioner, its steady rhythm as familiar as my own heartbeat. The bedroom door stands ajar, and I hear Rachel's heels clicking across the hardwood floor before she even speaks. "We need to talk," she says, voice crisp enough to cut glass. I set down my coffee mug and rise from the sofa, smoothing my shirt as though I might transform into someone acceptable by doing so. "Good morning," I reply, forcing a neutral tone that cracks beneath her gaze. Rachel steps into the light, arms folded, jaw tight. Her eyes flick to the side table where my mug still steams, then back to me. "Don't good morning me," she snaps. "Did you transfer the extra 500 yet?" I feel the familiar pit opening in my stomach. Another round of financial gymnastics. "Not yet," I admit, though my pride bristles at the confession. Her nostrils flare. "Not yet, Dad, I told you last week." The electric bill shot up again. "We can't carry your expenses on top of ours." She gestures at the cramped living room, the same furniture I bought years ago, now aging around me. "You knew what you signed up for when you moved in." I swallow and fold my hands behind my back. "Of course," I say quietly. "Let me know when the week ends." She steps closer. Invasion of personal space, as much a part of her arsenal as her ledger. "Let me be clear, wire the 500 by Friday or find another place to live." The words hit me with the force of a judge's gavel. My own daughter, raised to believe in compassion as much as cash flow, demands my eviction. The fire in her eyes lights a fury inside me, one I haven't felt since Margaret's last breath. "Very well," I answer, voice low and even. "I'll move out." She blinks, taken aback. "You'll what?" I meet her gaze, and something shifts in the air. "I'll move out," I repeat. "I'll find another home." Her mouth curves into a triumphant smirk. "Good. I'm glad that's settled. I'll help you pack." She turns and strides from the room, heels clicking a rapid tattoo across the floor. I stand there, stunned, watching her walk away before my knees threaten to buckle. My heart pounds first with fear, then something darker, exhilaration. She thinks she's won. She thinks she's broken me. But in her ultimatum, she's lit the fuse to something far bigger. I close my eyes and lean back against the cushion, letting Rachel's words echo. Find another place to live. A plan begins to crystallize, one I've toyed with since Mr. Carter's revelation, a plan that will reclaim every penny they took from me in rent and intimidation. I spend the rest of the morning in a daze, half listening to the radio's soft jazz, half lost in memory. I toy with the idea of slipping off to my secret home, packing a single bag of essentials, and disappearing before Rachel even knows where I've gone. Let her search for me like a tenant who vanished mid-month. But that's too small. I want my moment the moment she realizes the landlord was always her father. By lunch, I've made my decision. I pour a fresh cup of coffee, no oatmeal today, and settle at the table with pen and paper. First, I list every bill they've ever foisted on me. Rent checks, utilities, the extra maintenance fee they slipped in last spring when the air conditioner broke. I calculate sums I didn't allow myself to tally before letting the numbers swell higher than I ever expected. The total hums with injustice. Next, I draft an email to the realtor Paul Reynolds, who helped me keep the ownership secret. I type out a succinct message. Please prepare a listing agreement for immediate sale. Minimum acceptable price, $840,000. I attach scans of the corporate papers Shell LLC formed to hide my name and click send. Within seconds, a confirmation pings in my inbox. It's real. For the first time in years, I feel a spark of something like hope, or perhaps it's vindication. My future hinges on this sale. I picture Rachel's frantic scramble when she reads the listing. Historic 3-story home in Slidell listed at $890,000. I construct the mental scene, her hands trembling as she dials Mark. They're selling our house. How can this be? My lips curve upward. Let her panic. Let her feel the shock of the tables turning. That afternoon, I pack methodically a small suitcase for clothes. Margaret's photograph, my favorite books, the chipped blue china cup she painted in art class decades ago. Each item I place in the bag feels like putting on a new suit, one made of quiet resolve and hidden strength. In between, Lily drops by to study before her evening class. She finds me in the living room, suitcase at my feet, keys held loosely in my palm. Her eyes widen. Grandpa, what's going on? I lift the photograph, brushing a finger along Margaret's painted smile. I'm moving out, sweetheart, I say. I have to. She sets her books aside, all teenage indifference gone. But why? Dad said, you needed to pay more rent. Her lip trembles. I can help. I shake my head. No, it's not your fault, Lily. I'm taking the next step. I reach into my jacket pocket and pull out the business card for Paul Reynolds. I'm selling the house. She stares at the card as though it's a rare bloom. Selling. Grandma and Grandpa's house. Her voice catches. The one you lived in before you moved here? Exactly. I fold the card and tuck it into her hand. I bought it years ago, secretly. I've decided to let someone else take care of it. She looks at me, confusion and awe tangled in her gaze. You're selling it? I nod. That's right. She swallows hard, clutching the card, but what about Mom and Dad? I shrug, though the gesture feels heavy. They'll find a new home. Lily presses her hands to her mouth as though to catch words that might slip away. Grandpa, this is huge. It is. I step closer, placing my hand on her shoulder. But I need to do this. For me. I can't live under their rules any longer. She draws a shaky breath. I understand. Then, with that fierce love only a granddaughter can muster, she wraps her arms around me. I'll help you, okay? Whatever you need, I'll help. I hug her back, solid and unyielding. In her embrace, I feel the last chains loosen, the fear of isolation, the dread of losing Rachel's approval. Lily's warmth is the promise of a new alliance, one built on respect rather than rent. That evening, when Rachel storms in clutching overdue invoices and a stack of unopened letters, I stand firm. She thrusts the papers at me, eyes blazing. Here, the extra 500 wasn't wired on Monday. And look at these unpaid homeowners association fees. I meet her glare calm now. I'm selling this house, Rachel. You have 1 week to find a new place to live. Her lips part in shock. What? No, you can't. Can't or won't? I ask softly. Make your choice. She staggers back, the papers fluttering to the floor like wounded birds. Mark peers in from the kitchen phone already in hand. I see Thomas in the reflection, his face drained of color. In that charged silence, the world shifts. They grasp at straws, excuses, accusations, pleas, but I hold the ground steady beneath my feet. For the first time in years, I am not the tenant begging for mercy. I am the landlord, the owner, the master of my fate. They stand before me, reluctant and stunned, as I savor the memory of my own ultimatum. I'll move out. The words ring truer now than they ever did before. I step aside and gesture at the door. The next chapter starts without me. Pack your bags. Rachel's smirk of victory dissolves into disbelief. And I, for the first time since Margaret's last breath, feel the freedom of a man who has finally taken control of his own story. The taxi drops me in front of a low-slung brick building, its facade unassuming compared to my old 3-story home. I haul my single suitcase and a battered cardboard box, Margaret's photograph tucked inside, up the concrete steps to the battered green door. A faded brass plaque reads, Apartment 3B. No elevator, but one flight isn't much after lugging clothes across town. I pause on the landing, fingers brushing the chipped paint, and draw a steadying breath. Inside the flat is small but bright. A single window fills the room with afternoon light dancing across the pale walls. The hardwood floor creaks pleasantly underfoot, and I can almost hear its welcome. I set the cardboard box on the kitchen's narrow counter. Its laminate surface scratched the faucet's lever loose, but it feels like mine, wholly and finally. I open the cardboard and unpack the essentials, a few clean shirts, my worn but beloved trousers, Margaret's framed portrait of us by the rose garden. I place the photo on the tiny windowsill, positioning it so the light will spotlight her gentle smile each morning. Next comes the small radio, its dials chipped the speaker grill, battered from years of tinkering. I set it on the counter and twist the power knob. Jazz pours out in gentle waves, a muted trumpet, a brushed snare, the bass walking softly through empty corridors. I close my eyes and let the music fill the hush. There's no towering dining table here, no sofa big enough for two. Instead, a rickety card table and 2 folding chairs occupy the corner. I pull one out and sit sipping water from a chipped mug, my first meal, in a home untainted by rent ledger anxieties. The silence is profound. No ping of text messages reminding me of overdue utilities. No echo of Rachel's clipped tone demanding more money. Just the old radio's warm hum and my mind's gentle exhale. I stretch my legs and wander to the kitchenette, a tiny fridge, a hot plate, a single cabinet where I stow a box of oatmeal and a jar of coffee. It's all modest, but tonight I'll make something richer, eggs and toast, a small indulgence after months of watered-down breakfast. For now, I sit at the window watching cars drift by and neighbors stroll with grocery bags. Life pulses beyond these walls, and I'm no longer tethered to their schedules. A soft knock at the door startles me. I rise and open it to find Lily, her hair messy from class backpack slung low. She holds 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Hey, Grandpa," she says quietly. "I brought one for you. Thought you might be hungry, too." I gesture her in voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you, sweetheart. You're a sight for sore eyes." She steps inside, glancing around the tiny living space. "It's cozy," she says with a tentative smile, "like a little nest." I nod, motioning to the card table. "Sit down. I'm about to scramble some eggs." She perches on the edge of the chair, handing me my coffee. "This is exactly what you need," she murmurs. "No one hounding you for rent checks." I chuckle, wrapping my fingers around the warm mug. Feels like a new beginning. I turn on the hot plate and crack 2 eggs into a small skillet. The sizzle fills the room, mingling with the faint jazz. "How was your day?" She shrugs off her backpack, pulling out a notebook. "Good. I finished that paper on post-WWW2 journalism. Professor liked it." She closes her eyes and inhales. And then I walked past the old house. It was so quiet without all the bustle. My chest tightens at the memory of slamming doors and icy reminders. Quiet can be good, I say, flipping the eggs. Build your world without someone else's noise. She watches me with wide eyes. "I never realized how loud it got over there, every ding of the timer, every rent text. You were always so patient." She bites her lip. "I'm sorry I never saw it." I slide the eggs onto our plates and meet her gaze across the tiny table. "You saw it now." I raise my fork and take a bite, creamy yolk, soft white. And that's what matters. We eat in companionable silence, the kitchen's modest furnishings transforming into the warmest room I've known in years. Lily tells me about her plans to cover a college lecture series, her dreams of reporting on social justice. I listen, feeling a swell of pride that has nothing to do with money. After the last scrap of egg, Lily stacks our plates and rinses them in the small sink. I lean against the counter, watching her move gracefully in this space. "I'm going to help you decorate," she says, emerging with a folded blanket from her backpack. "You need a little color here." She spreads the blanket over the card table, bright stripes of crimson and gold. Then she hangs a small watercolor I painted decades ago, an abstract wash of blues and greens in the corner above the table. "There," she says, stepping back. "Now it feels more you." The afternoon light softens into gold, slanting across the blanket and the watercolor. I touch my fingertips to the paper, thoughtful. "Thank you, Lily, for everything." She smiles, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "You did the hard part." Suddenly my phone buzzes with an email notification. I check the screen. Preliminary listing agreement confirmed. Paul Reynolds's name flashes at the top, along with promising numbers. I read quickly multiple viewing requests. Potential bidders lined up. The sale is moving faster than I dared dream. I press the phone to my chest, mind racing. Lily notices. "Everything okay?" I fold the phone shut and slip it into my pocket. "Better than okay," I say, voice steady. "It means freedom." I pause, watching her eyes widen. Very close now. She reaches across the table, palm flat against mine. "You did it, Grandpa." I nod, squeezing her hand. In her touch I feel the future, no more rent lines, no more questions about bills, just the quiet coexistence of 2 lives finally untethered. The sun dips lower, turning the room's walls a soft rose. I switch off the radio and stand. "Let's go for a walk," I suggest, grabbing my coat. "Show me the nearest park." Lily beams. "It's just around the corner. You're going to love it." We step into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind us. The building's hall smells of worn carpet and distant elevators, a reminder that this flat is part of something larger but distinct from the pressures I left behind. Outside, the city's afternoon hum wraps around us. Car engines, distant laughter, the rustle of leaves. We walk side by side, grandpa and granddaughter free at last of ledgers and ultimatums. In this modest home with its single window and bare walls, I've found something grander than any three-story mansion, the quiet relief of a life reclaimed. I slide into the red vinyl banquette of Carmichael's Cafe and glance across the small table at Paul Reynolds. Steam curls above his espresso cup, and the late afternoon sun glints off the spokes of his wristwatch. He's impeccably dressed in a charcoal blazer and crisp white shirt, the kind of realtor who never forgets a name or a handshake. When I clear my throat to begin, his polished smile never flickers. "Mr. Davis," he says, setting down his coffee. "Good to see you again. How can I help today?" I fold my hands in my lap, careful to keep my voice steady. "Paul, I'm ready to list the house." He arches an eyebrow, amusement, or maybe approval dancing in his eyes. "Excellent. I thought you might come around. Have you given any thought to price?" I nod, tapping the edge of the tabletop. "I want the listing to start at $890,000, with a firm minimum of $840,000. His smile widens and he raises his cup in a silent toast. "I like it. Very strategic. That range suggests confidence but gives room for negotiation. Buyers will see a high ceiling but know they're not bidding blind." I let relief wash over me. Weeks of silent planning, careful calculations in ledgers hidden in my study, have led to this moment. Now I need to trust someone else with my secret. "There's one detail," I say, leaning in. "I can't have my name on the listing." Paul inclines his head, glancing around the cafe as though it's perfectly normal to hide in plain sight. "We'll form a limited liability company," he says, voice low and matter-of-fact. "LLC, single member. I've done this before. It shields your identity and limits liability. We'll register it under a generic name, Slidell Properties Holdings, for example. The contract will list the LLC as the seller. You'll still be in control, but no one will know it's you." I exhale, the tension draining from my shoulders. "Perfect." He scrolls through his tablet, tapping a few icons. "I'll draft the operating agreement this afternoon and send it to your email. Once you've signed, we can file the articles of organization. That usually takes 2 or 3 business days in this county. Meanwhile, I'll prepare the MLS listing and marketing materials so we're ready to go." I pick up the card he slid across the table when we first met, Paul Reynolds, licensed real estate broker, and roll it between my fingers. "Confidential showings," I say. "We want to limit them to times when Rachel's at work so she won't suspect the house is actually being sold." "Absolutely," Paul agrees. "We'll schedule showings weekdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's when most people can tour without the family feeling like they're under scrutiny. I'll place a lockbox on the side door with instructions that only agents with the access code can use it. We'll vet every request. No weekend open houses, no broker caravans, just one-on-one tours." I lean back, picturing elegant couples walking through the foyer, stepping across the polished hardwood, stepping right over the rent ledgers Rachel believes she's paying. "How many showings should I expect in, say, the first week?" He taps his tablet, studies a chart. "With the market this hot, and your house's location and character, I'd say 10 to 12 requests in the first 3 days. We'll have a virtual tour ready by tomorrow morning. Professional photos, 360-degree walkthrough, so only serious buyers reach out for in-person viewings. I picture the digital brochures, sunlit living rooms, the original crown molding the backyard gazebo by the pond, and the listing date. Let's target Wednesday morning. I'll submit to the MLS at 9 a.m., schedule the virtual tour to go live at 10. By lunchtime, we should have inquiries. He raises a finger. One critical detail, Mr. Davis, you'll need to set a clear disclosure that the property is tenant-occupied until closing. State law mandates that. But we'll phrase it neutrally. Owner-occupied tenants will vacate upon sale. That way, there's no alarm, but everyone knows a move-out is required. My chest tightens. I've spent 5 years paying rent on this place I own, letting Rachel believe she was my benevolent landlord. The thought of her reading owner-occupied in the fine print, it's delicious revenge. I like it, I say, voice quiet. Paul's eyes twinkle. One more thing. Earnest money. I recommend a deposit of at least 5%. For an $890,000 listing, that's $4,500. It weeds out tire kickers and shows buyers have skin in the game. I nod, thinking of the nest egg I've grown fastidiously over the years. Agreed. He thumbs an email draft and sends it to me. You'll have the LLC paperwork by tonight. Once that's filed, let me know, and I'll hit the ground running. In the meantime, I need copies of the deed and survey documentation you already gave me when we first met. I have them on file. I pull out a manila envelope from my jacket pocket, deed survey, and the shell company formation papers he drafted last month. Here. He collects them, slipping them into a leather portfolio. We're on schedule, he says, flipping closed the cover. By next week, we'll have a signed listing agreement, the MLS up and showings booked. I'll also coordinate with a stager for minor touch-ups, fresh paint in neutral tones, professional decluttering, maybe some tasteful floral arrangements. Nothing over the top, just enhancements to highlight the house's natural appeal. I lean forward, savoring the plan's perfection. Let's do it. He stands, offering me a firm handshake. Consider it done. His grip is warm, confident, exactly what I need. I'll be discreet. No flyers, no public signs. We'll rely on online channels and personal networks. Your secret stays safe. I tuck his card into my jacket pocket and rise. Thank you, Paul. Truly. I feel the weight of the last weeks, Mr. Carter's prodding, Lily's comfort, Thomas's pleas, slough off my shoulders. In its place is something lighter, bracing purpose. We step out onto the sidewalk, daylight waning. I pass by a row of delivery trucks and small businesses closing their shutters, and I glimpse my reflection in a shop window, the reflection of a man reborn not as a penniless tenant, but as the master of his own destiny, armed with the truth and the leverage of a fortune concealed behind corporate paper. Paul and I part with a wave. I walk back down Main Street, mind racing with final adjustments, keys to hide documents, to sign schedules, to coordinate. I feel the thrill of impending liberation, the moment when the sold sign will go up in front of the Browns, then mine. I imagine the frantic scramble, the shock, the scramble to find a new home. But mostly, I imagine Rachel's face when she learns the landlord is not who she thought. The sweet, sharp taste of justice fills my mouth as I reach my car and climb in. Jazz still hums in my ears from this morning's radio. Now it seems like a victory song. I start the engine and pull away, determination guiding every turn. In a few days, this neighborhood will change. It'll hum with showings, whispered negotiations, closing paperwork. And in the midst of it all, I'll be free. Free from ledgers and ultimatums, free from the pretense of dependence, free to reclaim the life I built in secret, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. As the streetlights flicker on, a new chapter unfolds, one that belongs entirely to me. The morning sun hadn't yet cleared the rooftops when Paul Reynolds called with the news. I was sipping coffee in my downtown flat when the phone buzzed, Paul's number lighting up the screen. "Mr. Davis," he said briskly, We've received a cash offer of $860,000 from an elderly couple. They're pre-qualified, no contingencies, clean as a whistle. They'd like to close within 2 weeks. I set my mug down, heart hammering. 2 weeks. My palms felt slippery against the phone. "Accept it," I told him, voice steady, though my insides trembled. He paused as though savoring the moment. "Excellent choice. I'll notify them this afternoon. Meanwhile, we need to confirm your signature on the preliminary contract. I'll be by your office in an hour," I said, already reaching for my coat. By 9:30, I was seated in Paul's sleek office, signing page after page of crisp documents. The LLC name stared back at me in bold type, Slidell Properties Holdings, LLC. My hand moved with deliberate calm, even as each initial felt like a spark lighting a fuse. When I signed the last page, Paul slid the contract across his desk. "Congratulations," he said, handing me a copy. "We're under contract. Next step, final walkthrough and closing date. I'll coordinate everything." I tucked the papers into my briefcase and stood. "Thank you, Paul. You've been discreet." He smiled, professional pride gleaming. "Discretion is my specialty. I'll handle the rest." Back in the taxi, I watched the city blur past my mind, racing. 860,000, that windfall, would transform my life and end Rachel's tenure here more surely than any ultimatum. I pictured the glossy sold sign going up in front of the Browns' old place, then in front of mine, the dot, signifying not just a transaction, but the closing of a chapter in my own story. That afternoon, I received Paul's text. "I have a private showing scheduled with the tenant your daughter tomorrow at 10 a.m. She thinks it's a meeting about a new washer-dryer or a roof estimate. We'll spring the news then." My stomach tightened. I barely slept that night, imagining Rachel's face when she learned her landlord was none other than her own father. At precisely 10:00 the next morning, Paul knocked on Rachel and Mark's front door. I hovered in the background, hidden behind a parked car down the street, watching through narrowed eyes. The door opened to reveal Rachel, hair pulled back and a tight bun, phone in hand, and a look of polite curiosity on her face. "Good morning, Rachel." Paul greeted, clipboard in hand. "I'm here on behalf of Slidell Properties Holdings. The owner requested a quick discussion about some maintenance requests and our timeline moving forward." Rachel's confident smile faltered. "Maintenance requests," she echoed, stepping aside. "Come in." She ushered him past her into the foyer, oblivious to my presence. I edged closer, positioning myself in the shadows of the side walkway. Through the windows I could hear her voice, crisp and controlled. "This is unexpected," she said, as Paul followed her through the living room. "Usually Mark handles the house stuff." He cleared his throat. "Actually, the owner, your landlord, has decided to sell the property. The sale was finalized yesterday." His voice was calm, almost clinical. Rachel blinked, stunned. The clipboard clattered to the floor. "What are you saying?" she whispered, hands coming to rest on her hips. Paul checked his notes. "The property is under contract for $860,000. The closing date is set for 2 weeks from today. The buyers require possession 30 days after closing. Legally, you'll need to vacate by then." I saw the color drain from her cheeks as the words sank in. She opened her mouth as though to protest, but no sound came out. Paul's expression remained compassionate, a comforting stranger bearing bad news. I don't understand," she managed, voice wavering. "We've been paying rent every month on time." Why didn't I know? Paul's gaze softened. The owner structured the sale through the LLC to protect his privacy. He felt it was the most efficient way to handle the transaction. "I apologize for the suddenness, but the buyers are ready to move forward. We did send an email last night to the address on file, but it may have gone to spam. Rachel sank onto the edge of the sofa, covering her mouth with her hand. The living room, once her domain of control and comfort, felt suddenly alien, an evaporating world she'd taken for granted. I watched through the glass pane as tears pricked her eyes. Her shoulders shook, and she looked around, memory flooding her gaze, the chipped blue bowl on the counter, the worn sofa cushions that bore my shape, the photos on the mantel of family gatherings I had quietly observed. She realized at that moment the truth of every unpaid mortgage, every hidden ledger line she'd been renting her father's home. A soft gasp escaped her lips. "This can't be happening," she murmured. Paul set down his clipboard and knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Rachel, you have rights as a tenant. We'll make sure you receive the full statutory notice and relocation assistance if required. I'll help you find local listings, coordinate moving services. You won't be left out in the cold." She looked up at Paul, eyes brimming. He was a stranger, yet she clung to his professionalism like a lifeline. I felt a pang of pity mingled with triumph. She was learning the price of her own demands, the cost of treating me as a rental fee rather than her father. I turned away, walking back down the sidewalk without hesitation. The news had been delivered. The floodgates opened. Now the process would unfold in its legal, regulated way, but the personal damage was done. Rachel's fortress of entitlement lay in ruins. When I reached my car, the engine still running, I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight lift from my chest. For over 5 years, I'd rented my own home for $2,000 a month, relinquishing my rights and my dignity. Now the house would change hands, and with it the false narrative Rachel had built around my dependence. I breathed deeply, the downtown air crisp and cool. The flats of light and shadow on the pavement seemed to pulse with new promise. I drove away, leaving behind the home I'd loved and lost in deception, and the tenant who'd shrunk her own father into an expense line. As the city streets gave way to quieter avenues, Paul's words lingered in my mind. "The property is under contract. Under contract. Not under their control, not under their monthly demands. Under contract, under my command, at last." The house had changed hands, but the story did not end there. It had only begun to unfold. I slipped quietly in, just as Paul Reynolds hurries off, his polished shoes clicking down the hall. Rachel stands in the living room, eyes rimmed red, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Mark hovers behind her phone, pressed to his ear, Thomas and Emma just beyond frozen mid-step, and Lily peeking in from the hallway, face etched with worry. I clear my throat softly. Every head whips toward me, surprise rippling through the room. Rachel's mouth parts, confusion and dawning horror mingling in her eyes. "I'm not your tenant," I say, voice gentle but firm. "I've been the landlord for 20 years. Silence crashes around us. Her face drains of color. Strands of hair fall loose from her tight bun. She takes a step back, clutching the sofa's arm for support. "What? What did you say?" I fold my arms, steadying myself. "This house, these walls, this roof are mine. I bought it 20 years ago after your mother died, using money I never told you about. I've been charging you rent ever since." Rachel's eyes widen until they glisten, disbelief warping her features. "That's impossible," she whispers. I paid rent to Lisa's properties. I have the canceled checks." Mark lowers his phone eyes, flicking between us. "Dad, you're joking, right? You've been living on Social Security. How could you own a house worth, what did you say? Nearly $1 million? I meet his gaze, pity and resolve weaving through my own. "I won the lottery in 2005, $1.8 million. I kept it quiet because I knew you and Thomas would come asking again and again and never stop. So I bought this house and let you think you were renting it." Thomas, who'd stormed toward me earlier with anger in his eyes, halts dead in his tracks. "You lied to us," he demands. "All those times I asked for a loan and you said, 'Not a penny.' You just had the money hidden away." I nod slowly. Every dollar went into savings until today. Today you'll need to find another place to live. His face twitches with betrayal. "You're throwing your own daughter out," he growls, fists clenched. "This is monstrous." I study him calmly. "You demanded I pay $500 more or move out. I chose the latter. It's nothing personal." I glance at Rachel. "It's business." Mark's phone call forgotten, he strides in. "What about the kids? We just moved them here for school." "Do you have any idea what you're doing, I feel?" Lily slipped through the crowd to my side, her small hand slipping into mine. Her presence steadies me. She locks eyes with me. Sorrow for her mother, pride for her grandfather. I nod to her, and her grip tightens. Rachel's voice quavers. "Why did you never tell us? Why let me believe I was landlord? You let us take your money every month." I cross to the mantel, where family photos line the shelf, images of birthdays I almost missed, of graduations I attended as a second thought rather than as a doting father. Because I say softly, I wanted to protect what was mine, and I wanted you to value my presence, not my purse. Her tears fall in silent streams. I treated you like a roommate," she chokes out. "I never cared about you." "No," Lily interjects, voice clear. "You cared about the money." Her words land like stones on glass. Rachel flinches. Emma steps forward, shielding the teens with a quiet dignity. "This is hard to process," she says, "but we can work through it. We'll find another home, Dad. Mr. Davis." Her use of my formal name, Davis, the surname I haven't used in decades, strikes a chord. I realize how far I've drifted from who they thought I was. Thomas stalks to the window, fists pressed against the glass. "You're out of your mind," he mutters. "We're family. You don't do this to family." I stand my ground. "What is family?" I ask, voice rising. "Taking me in only to charge me for my own house, counting every light switch and faucet. Today you see what happens when you treat love like a ledger entry." Rachel covers her face, her shoulders shaking. Mark steps to his side and gently drapes an arm around her. "Honey," he murmurs, voice soft. "No," she snaps, looking at me with grief and fury mixed. "I don't want your pity." Lily pulls me toward her eyes, bright with tears. "Grandpa," she says, "I'm so sorry." I kneel to her level, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You don't have to apologize, Lily. You're the only one who loved me for me." She wipes her cheek. "I love you, and I'm proud of you. But what happens now?" I stand and turn toward her mother and brother. "You have 30 days to vacate," I say, looking each of them in the eye. "I'll provide a letter from Reynolds that outlines your rights and relocation assistance. But this house is sold. My decision." Rachel's lips tremble as she whispers, "Sold. But where will we go?" I step back, voice unwavering. "That's yours to figure out, and I wish you well. But I can't be your tenant anymore." The living room feels impossibly small, as though the walls close in on them all. The photos of happier times stand witness, silent and accusing. At last, Mark's voice breaks the hush. "Is there nothing we can say?" he asks, defeated. I shake my head. "Nothing more." Rachel's tears fall freely now. Thomas wraps an arm around Emma. Lily stands close to me, brave in her sorrow. We remain like that until the sun dips low, casting long shadows across the floor, shadows of a family shattered by hidden truths. Finally, without another word, I turn and walk toward the front door. My footsteps echo down the hallway, each step a breaking of bonds. I pause at the threshold, looking back one last time. Rachel stands against the sofa, her silhouette fragile and small. Mark half carries her toward the study. Thomas helps Emma gather the younger children. Lily meets my eyes, and we share a silent understanding. Some divides can't be bridged, not without rebuilding the foundation. I step outside into the warm evening air, the door clicking softly behind me. Across the quiet street, neighbors continue their routines, unaware of the rupture next door. I close my eyes and breathe deeply, tasting the bittersweet tang of freedom. In the hushed calm of the street, I realize the cost of my secret. A family torn apart, a daughter's heartbreak, a son's fury. But I also grasp the price of standing true to myself. No more rent ledger indignities, no more living as someone's shadow. For the first time in decades, I am neither tenant nor hidden landlord. I am simply Henry Davis, a man who dared to own his life in every sense of the word. I unlock the front door of my new bungalow and step inside, the afternoon light pouring through wide-arched windows just as the listing photos promised. The hardwood floors are slick and pale, and the walls still wear that fresh-baked scent of new paint. I close the door behind me and pause for a moment, letting the quiet wash over me. "Welcome home," I whisper to myself, the words tasting strange and sweet in my mouth. My first order of business is the armchair. I'd fallen in love with it the moment I saw it in the furniture showroom, a deep caramel-hued leather recliner with a high back and cushions that promised to cradle my 77-year-old bones. Paul picked it up for me on his way here today. It's already in the living room, sitting at a slight angle so I can see out the window where the maple trees stretch toward the street. I sink into it now, the leather folding gently around me, and let out a long breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. A soft hum drifts through the room as I reach for the vintage record player I carried over from the flat downtown. I set a record spinning Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. As the trumpet's cool notes fill the space, I close my eyes and feel a smile tug at the corners of my mouth. "Mr. Davis." I startle and look up to see Mrs. Patterson, my next-door neighbor, in a floral apron, peeking in from the doorway. "I baked some fresh cornbread," she says with a genuine warmth. "Thought you might like some company." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson," I reply, standing to greet her. She steps inside, carrying a tray that smells of butter and sugar. "It's lovely to see you," I say, guiding her to the little kitchen corner. She sets the tray on the countertop and pours us each a glass of iced tea. "You're really making this place your own," she says, glancing around. "That chair looks mighty comfortable." I sink back into the recliner again, gesturing for her to sit on the couch. It is, I agree. Feels like the first real rest I've had in years. We talk for a while about the weather, about how the city seems quieter here, about the community garden down the block. She tells me her grandson plays soccer at the local park and invites me to stop by Saturday afternoon if I'd like to watch a game. I accept, surprising myself with how easily I commit to the next few days. After she leaves, I set the iced tea on the side table and rise to survey the rest of the bungalow. The bedroom is just down the hall, a cozy space, with room enough for a dresser, a nightstand, and my old radio. I unbox it carefully, its spare tubes rattling inside. Back in my downtown flat, I restored it over countless evenings. Now it sits proudly atop a small table, ready to hum with music once more. My study is set up just off the living room, a tidy desk with a leather blotter, a lamp with a green glass shade, and shelves that stretch halfway up the wall, already filled with volumes of detective novels, history tomes, and a few of Margaret's favorite cookbooks. I run a finger across the spines, feeling their solidity. Each book feels like a promise that there is more to life than numbers on a ledger. Later that afternoon, Lily bursts in as if propelled by youthful wind. She's fresh from work at the coffee shop, her apron still dusted with flour. "Grandpa," she exclaims, dropping her bag at the door. "This place is amazing." I laugh and hug her. "You're just in time for cornbread." I lead her to the kitchen where the last crumb sits on the tray. She takes it eagerly, toasting it with a flick of her hand. "I saw Mrs. Patterson," she says between bites. "She invited us to the soccer game on Saturday." I nod, pleased. "I'll be there with bells on." She sets down her tea and peers at my desk. "What's all this?" She gestures to a neat stack of papers, my trust documents. I sit her beside me and hand her the envelope stamped "Irrevocable Trust for Lily Davis." She unfolds the pages, eyes scanning until she finds the relevant section. This says my name. "And a college fund, right?" I smile, tapping the document. "Correct. I've set aside a substantial amount in a trust for your education and the rest of your life's plans. No strings attached." Her eyes fill with tears, joy, gratitude, and disbelief all in one. "Grandpa, I don't know what to say." I place a hand over hers. "You've always been the one person in this family who cared about me, not about my money. You deserve this." She throws her arms around me, and I feel the years of loneliness melt away. For a long moment it's just us in our little bungalow, safe from the past storms. The next day I drive out to pick up my mail from the old flat. The realtor's lockbox is gone, and a sold sign stands in front of the 3-story house, a silent testament to my final departure from the life I built on secrecy. I feel no regret, only a sense of completion, as though each brick of that old place now stands in my memory, unburdened by rent checks. That evening, I invite Lily over again, this time with her roommate Sarah in tow. We cook a simple dinner, spaghetti with garlic bread, and share stories over the small dining table. Sarah asks about my radio, and I show her how to tune it, letting the static settle into a clear signal. We listen together to a late-night jazz program, Sarah leaning in to hear each note, Lily's head resting on my shoulder. In the days that follow, I visit Paul Reynolds one last time, signing the final closing documents. He hands me the keys with a grin. "You did the right thing," he says. "You're free." I tuck the keys into my pocket and step out into the late afternoon light, the breeze rustling the magnolia leaves overhead. I close my eyes and let the moment settle in my bones, a man at peace with his choices, his home and his legacy. At home, I hang a few family photos on the walls, Lily and me at the park, Margaret's portrait by the rose garden, and light the table lamp that once belonged to Margaret's grandmother. Its warm glow spills across the room, dust motes dancing in the beam. I settle back in my armchair, turn on the radio, and let the jazz wash over me. Lily pokes her head in from the study. "You okay, Grandpa?" I reach out to her, setting down my tea. "Better than I've been in years," I say, voice thick with emotion. "Today I feel truly free." She beams, slipping in to sit beside me. We fall into companionable silence, listening to the music, a duet of sax and piano, mellow and timeless. In that shared moment, the past's burdens seem distant, almost unreal, and the road ahead feels open, uncharted, and filled with promise. I reach for my glass, raise it in a silent toast to the life I've reclaimed and the legacy I've secured for Lily. And as the record spins toward its final notes, I realize that roots aren't just about where we come from, they're about where we choose to grow and the seeds we leave behind in those we love. In my small bungalow with its gentle light and wide doorways, I have planted new roots and secured a lasting legacy, not in bricks or money, but in the hearts of the ones who matter most.